Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. I wanted to put a show together because I'm seeing some pretty important trends that I wanted to talk about today. And I'm going to share a screen here and pull up the gold chart. There it is. I hope you can all see that. Let me make sure it's working properly. No, it's not. There we go. Alrighty, so you'll hear me talk a lot about golden crosses and death crosses, and they're the primary technical indicator that I use. The reason that I use them is that there are a lot of technical indicators that I believe are noisy and prone to investors getting whipsawed in their investments based on those trends. The 50-day and the 200-day are less noisy, and I think you can be much more successful in picking the direction of trends. At least I have been, and that's why I think that they're so important. And this gold, what I've got up here now is the gold trend. And as you can see, it went through a important golden cross here. Why that's important to me is, first of all, I'm not a Johnny-come-lately into seeing this this golden cross. For most of 2022, I was talking about what I saw in the trends concerning valuations of junior mining companies and the US dollar. I'll get onto that next. What I was seeing was very reminiscent to me of what we saw in the year 2000, prior to the start of a decade-long or slightly more than a decade-long bull market for precious metals, gold, silver, and base metals. And some similarities that I saw was that in 2000, the US dollar was strong, and the price of commodities, gold in particular, was very weak. They're priced in the US dollar. That's the primary price that people pay attention to. And this was causing very poor sentiment towards the mining stocks, gold, silver, copper, and other metals. And they were trading at record lows relative to the assets that they had in their ground. And that was consistent whether you were looking at the biggest major mining companies, the middle tier, and the junior explorers. Fast forward to 2022, and you had the US dollar very strong, and gold weak, and the mining stocks were back to record lows. Then I started to see some trends happening particularly here in September, October, and November for gold, that it looked like to me that that it was bottoming and ready for a breakout. We got a significant breakout in November where the price of gold blasted through the 50-day moving average. In late November, early December, it blasted through the 200-day moving average. It is now well above, over $100 above the 50-day moving average, and well above $120-ish above the 200-day moving average, and has gone through a golden cross. As I said, I'm not a Johnny-come-lately to this, and I'm also not one who sort of just highlights my good stuff and then hides my bad calls. If you want to confirm what I was saying, it's very easy. I put all my reports up on YouTube at Rocks and Stocks News. You can easily go back and look at the track record of what I was saying during these important junctures in the market. And so I want to talk a little bit about where I see this trend and the fundamentals pointing. As you can see, the trajectory of the 50-day moving average as it's gone through the 200-day moving average is a very steep slope up. And that's, to me, indicative of what I see happening next, which is I believe the 200-day moving average is going to start trending upwards. And the 50-day moving average in 2023, I believe, will stay well above the 200-day moving average, with the 200-day moving average in a bullish pattern. Part of the reason that I say that is, let's look at the US dollar. And as is often the case, when the US dollar is strong, commodities, gold, silver, copper, other commodities are weak that are priced in that US dollar. And as you can see here, it topped out in late September and has been falling off a cliff ever since. It's no wonder, it's not a surprise to me. As I talked about this in my reports, I kept on predicting that this trajectory of the drop was suggesting that it was going to go through a death cross, which happened here in early January. And I think you're going to see the opposite of what I expect for the price of gold, silver, and other commodities. I think that what you're going to see happen here is the 200-day moving average trends downward, and the 50-day moving average spends most of 2023, I think the entire year, well below the 200-day moving average, and which is very bullish for the price of gold. Now let's talk about some of the fundamental reasons that these trends are happening, because if the fundamentals weren't backing up these trends, one, you wouldn't see the trends happening, and secondly, you would have a very poor accuracy and as to the predictability of where those trends are going. And the correction in the US dollar has been, I think currency traders are expecting to see the Federal Reserve is at the end of its rate increases, and the US dollar traders are a pretty good indicator of getting in before things happen. You could see here that going back to mid 2022, that they started front running the Federal Reserve starting to raise interest rates. And when the interest rates started to rise, you got this rapid increase in the price of the US dollar. And now you see them front running the end of the Federal Reserve right here, starting to change direction. In this slope upwards, they had been on a relentless path of raising interest rates by 0.75% at each Federal Reserve meeting for several Federal Reserve meetings. Then in December, they cut that rate increase to 0.5%. And they also talked about, they feel that the peak interest rates will be somewhere between 5 to 5.5%. You know, so that means there may be another 0.75% away from ending the rate increases. I think that you're seeing the currency markets predict that. I also think what's giving the currency traders this positioning is that they are seeing things breaking due to the over tightening. And by the way, the Federal Reserve Chairman Powell, prior to the December meeting, talked about their concerns for over tightening. And I think you can see why they were concerned about that. In the real estate sales market has just fallen off of a cliff. So they've already broken the real estate market. Now you also see that the yield curves which are a very remarkably accurate indicator of recessions coming, are all inverted. So you've got signs that the debt market believes that there's a significant recession coming, and more evidence that the Federal Reserve is breaking things. And then you got the politicians who are joining the party. They are relentless in their spending. And that doesn't matter whether you're looking at the left or the right. They're both relentless in spending. Now they're at a debt limit arguments and debate and fiasco and a real farce, because the idea that the politicians on the left and the right are going to, have constraints in their spending and by keeping the debt level where it is comical. They, both sides of the party, love to spend money, and that's not going to change. They will, without a doubt, raise the debt limit, and but in the meantime, they'll try their best to create some issues, because it gives them an opportunity to get in front of the cameras and get some people watching their consternations regarding the debt limit, and their some will portray themselves as fiscally responsible, but the reality is that whether you're looking at the left or the right, they're not fiscally responsible. They're politicians that like to spend money. And the idea that they are going to have constraints on them is laughable. And but in the meantime, they're going to exacerbate the problem of what the Federal Reserve has done by raising interest rates so relentlessly. I mean, in the past, they would raise interest rates 1 or 2 times and then see how the data comes in. But for most of 2022, they've been on this relentless path of raising interest rates and trying unsuccessfully to slow down the inflation that they caused. They helped cause it, and then what really amplified it was the COVID pandemic effect on the supply chains of many products. But nonetheless, you had inflation in assets well before that, which was caused by 14 years of near zero interest rates. When you build a real estate market and an economy on near zero interest rates, and then you ratchet them up dramatically, it's no wonder that we're starting to see things break in the real estate sales, and also in the prediction that the inverted yield curve is pointing towards a severe recession. And the Federal Reserve will, like always, be behind the curve. They wait until the data sort of confirms what they've been doing, and their models are quite laughable. These are the Federal Reserve is full of economists, and they're supposed to be good at modeling economic indicators, but I think that they for the most part ignore economic indicators and wait until the data confirms their narrative. And in this case, I think see them breaking things, and gold, and not just gold but silver. Investors would be much better off in gold and silver over the last few months. That certainly doesn't make mainstream media. As you can see, silver did what it does. It outperforms on the downside and outperforms on the upside. It went into a golden cross well before the gold did. Now the 50-day moving average is well above the 200-day moving average, and the 200-day moving average is bottoming and about to get more bullish. And again, throughout 2023, what I think you'll see is that both the 200-day and 50-day move into a very strong trend that takes the price much higher. But they're not the only metals that I think are doing some interesting stuff. Let's take a look at copper. Copper is, following the same trend as gold. It broke out in November, traded well through its 50-day moving average and well through its 200-day moving average. And now they're at the gold copper price is at a golden cross. And, again, it looks like a trend that due to this trajectory of the move upwards, that it will continue to go upwards. So then let's look at the fundamentals for copper. Many will say, well, if the US goes into a recession, isn't that going to affect the price of copper? And I think what offsets that analysis is that China is a much more important indicator of what's going to happen with the price of copper. They're the biggest consumer of copper in the world. Recently, they went through, they had some very serious restrictions on the economy due to their COVID policy. And recently they started to change those restrictions. And it's no wonder that you've seen copper blast off in early 2023 when they started to lift those restrictions. Another offset for the copper price is the revolution that's happening with the electric vehicles. And that's an unstoppable force. Consumers are going to more and more transition over into electric vehicles. And I'm not saying that tomorrow or 2 or 5 years from now that they're going to replace the internal combustion engine as the dominant car that people drive. But as they transition, they're going to need a lot more copper. The metals needed for a copper or a electric vehicle are significantly more than what is needed for an internal combustion engine. Now, some will argue, is a electric vehicle really as environmentally aware as people think? I'm not going to get into that argument other than to say that you need a lot of mining of a lot of raw materials in order to make that electric vehicle revolution happen. And I think it's an unstoppable force. And so I think that the trend in what's happening in China for copper demand and what's happening with the electric vehicle demand is going to be very bullish for the price of copper. The big reason that I think copper is, you can make a strong argument for copper, is on the supply side. In the past, if you looked at the inventories of at the London Metal Exchange and other warehouses of physical copper throughout the world, it was often measured in months of demand being stored at those. Now it's down to days. And you see any kind of issues such as, Chile is a major producer of copper in the world. If Chile's, which happens on a fairly regular basis, if the mining unions of Chile decide to go on strike, and which often coincides with strong copper prices because they want more, and whether that's, people think that that's necessary or not, that's up for your debate. The reality is when you get strong copper prices, the copper producing unions in Chile often will have strikes. And so this would put even more constraints on the supply. So there's a lot of things that are lining up for copper, gold, silver, other commodities. The main driver is the US dollar action. The secondary drivers are the fundamentals in those metals on the supply and demand. and pretty much across the board, whether you're looking at copper, gold, silver, zinc, whatever commodities that are needed for our modern lives, they've gone through long periods of underexploration to find new mines to put into the development pipeline and to replace the known mines. And even at the known mines, they've been high grading those mines for a long period of time. And that problem is coming to roost, because you can see in the head grades of many mines that they're dropping. They got to go deeper for lower grade. And again, this puts constraints on the supply chain. Meanwhile, you got the demand that's very strong across the board in many metals. So that's why I'm so bullish on the metals. But where I see the most inefficiency is in going back to what I said about the similarities between 2000. And you still have many companies, whether the biggest, middle tier, or the smallest, that are trading at record lows relative to what they have in the ground. So the market is very inefficient at analyzing and identifying quality during these kind of periods. I'm very fortunate that, I've been in the business since 1993, and I had terrific mentors in geology, geophysics, and geochemistry, and they have helped me to know what to look for. And the fact that I'm pretty good at it can be seen in the quality of the companies that I have as sponsors of my website and as picks in my reports. They have significantly outperformed in many cases. I have an excellent track record that you can see in my past interviews of identifying value before the market does. And, that has to do with the mentors that I've had, have enabled me to be able to hunt with a rifle, not with a shotgun. Many of my peers hunt with shotguns because they want to reduce their risk, but they also reduce their rewards. And the fact that they have to hunt with a shotgun and have, less than stellar performance is an indication of their ability to identify value. The fact that I hunt with a rifle, I don't cover 100 companies. There may be 100 companies on my radar screen, but very few of them make them into my pick list, and very few of them make them into my sponsorship program. And the performance of the group of my key picks and my sponsors is a reflection of my ability to hunt with a rifle fairly successfully, and I don't need a shotgun. One of those companies that I'm always harping on is a company called i-80 Gold. They've been a sponsor of my website, and have a look at the performance that they've done, significantly outperforming the movement in the price of gold and silver. They went through a golden cross well ahead of the price of gold and silver going through golden crosses. As you can see here in November, they had a tremendous move that broke through the 50-day moving average and then the 200-day moving average. And it is significantly above the 200-day moving average. The current price is $3.72. Meanwhile, the 200-day moving average is at $2.93. And what they're doing is kind of indicative of what I think is going to happen with the price of gold during 2023. As you can see here, the 200-day moving average is trending upwards, and the 50-day moving average is significantly above the 200-day moving average. This is the kind of action that I'm predicting for the price of gold and silver in 2023. And why i-80 Gold is such a significant outperformer relative to their peers has to do with what they're finding at their projects, and that I'm very fortunate to have I-80 Gold as a sponsor, and Ewan Downey as a puts a priority on coming on my shows after they put out impressive news to discuss that news so that we can dig deeper into it and give my audience a better understanding of what that news means. One of those important interviews was back here when they announced a spectacular drill hole from the CRD discovery that they're making in Eureka, Nevada, at the southern end of their the historical producing excuse me, Archimedes pit. And what they found there is quite a remarkable discovery of CRDs. Yes, it has your silver, lead, and zinc in it, but in addition to that, it has extremely high gold, bonanza grade gold, and high grade to bonanza grade gold in it. This big move was based on a CRD numbers, including bonanza grade. I think it was over 60 grams of gold in that news release that just sent them into overdrive. Pending is they've got a bunch of assay results pending from this remarkable CRD discovery that they've made to the south of the Archimedes pit. But I was banging the table on the company long before they made that CRD discovery, because I think they've got two other world-class projects on their hands and a business model to make them a multi-billion-dollar company of the future. And why I say that is, if you look to the west of the Archimedes pit, they've hit the Ruby Deeps discovery, which is thick intersections of high-grade gold that is likely can benefit from bulk underground mining. And then above that, they have the 426 zone, and right above that, they have the bottom of the Archimedes pit at the west side. So that historical pit enables them to get easy access to the 426 zone. And what makes that 426 zone so exciting is a significant portion of that is oxides, which makes for very low cost and high profit margins, which will then lead them down to the 426 zone, which I think will also be a cash-making machine of a mine. But they started the year really and had really big success, and then continued that through the year on their Granite Creek project. And at Granite Creek, they have it's a tremendously exciting project. They've been hitting thick intersections of high grade in their South Pacific zone. And at South Pacific, it now extends for over a 600-meter strike length with excellent continuity of the high grade. And if you keep on following it to the north, you run into historical drill holes that suggest that that trend continues. And you go not far from that, and you run into the Turquoise Ridge mine, which is a 25 million ounce elephant of a mine in the same rocks and the same structural story. So I think that I-80 Gold has three world-class projects on its hands. And then you look at their other assets, and collectively, this is why I keep saying that I see a multi-billion-dollar company in the making. It would not surprise me if in the next few years you see that with a $5 to $10 billion valuation. Currently, they're under $1 billion valuation. This opportunity doesn't come along very often, where you can have a company that is delivering with the truth machine so substantially that protects your downside risk, but also gives you an opportunity for 5 to 10x your performance. So I-80 Gold is a cornerstone holding, as far as I'm concerned, for investors that want access to gold. Okay, so the next company I'm going to talk about, and the rest of the companies, I'm just going to talk about them in alphabetical order. Amex Exploration is a company that I started covering back in 2009, back when they were way down here. I remember people saying, "Oh, well, they're already actually, I started it right about here when they were at about 50 cents after it had already made a big move, and people were saying, well, is it all already over? And I said, well, I don't think so, because from the early drilling that they were making, I saw that they would have excellent continuity of high-grade gold in their high-grade zone. They continued to show that, and the stock went to as high as over $4 a share. In 2022, particularly the latter part of 2022, it's been sort of flatlining, but I picked it as a tax loss selling pick here because I thought it was dramatically oversold. It's cooperated quite nicely since then, and really what I see happening is quite an impressive orogenic gold system that they have. They have at their high grade zone, they have excellent continuity of the high grade from surface all the way down to 1,000 meters, and it's open beyond that. Why that's important is that as you look at an orogenic gold system, these are fault controlled systems. And these cracks in the earth are crustal, so they go down for thousands of meters. And what generally happens is as you get deeper and closer to the heat engine, you get higher and higher grades. This can be seen in the Red Lake mine. At Red Lake, they had been mining at the upper portions of that system for decades. It was a so-so mine. But then they got under 1,000 meters and just blew the top off the project. They started getting into 2 ounce and plus high-grade gold, and that jewelry box continued for over another 1,000 meters. And when Gold Corp was mining that deep stuff, they were one of the lowest cost producers of gold in the business and one of the best performers. And I see that Amex could be following that same path to success. Now, added to my confidence about Amex is right beside the high grade zone is an open pit target with very high grade for an open pit target called the Denise zone. Now, what's interesting is if you brought this project into production, you could produce off of the open pit, and that would give you access to the high grade zone. But the story doesn't stop there, because then you look at, they've found other high grade zones in close proximity to the high grade zone and the Denise zone. So you've got all of this high grade in close proximity to each other. So then the question becomes, well, what's the chances that that goes much deeper and that there's a deeper high grade source to all of this gold mineralization? So then you have to start looking at the structural story. On the southern end of the zones that they've been hitting, they have what's called the Perron zone. And to the north of, and it dips down to the, or towards the north. At the north end, you've got the Normantal fault. Okay, so, and as those faults come together, you've got where they found all of this widespread high-grade gold mineralization and the Denise zone. Denise is right at the contact of two rock packages. Sort of, it looks kind of like a boat to me, in that you've got the Perron fault here, you've got the Normantal fault here. Perron is like the bottom of a boat, and it's dipping towards the north. And inside of that, inside the boat, if you will, or the ship, is the Beaupre block, which is important in this whole story, because that's what has allowed those fluids carrying high-grade gold to make deposits in between these two faults. But I think that there's two potential sources of where all of this mineralization is coming from. One could be on either side of the boat, where you've got the Perron fault and you've got the Normantel fault, but then they squeeze tightly together, and sort of at the front of the boat. I think it's called the bow. I'm not a boat expert, but this ship of gold is very exciting to me, because where it squeezes together could be a structural trend where you could also have those fluids making their way up. Recently, the company announced that they're doing a series of holes in that front of the boat, if you will. So I think that they've got a mine of the future on their hands. I don't think Amex Exploration is going to be the one that does that mining. I think that they're going to be taken over by a much bigger company at a much higher valuation. So that's another one that I'm very bullish on. Now I'm going to talk about my first company that's a sponsor of my shows, and that is Blackrock Silver. And as you can see here, Blackrock Silver, I talked to management back in here somewhere and made them, or right around here, I believe it was, and then I made them a pick in my tax loss selling picks, and they performed very well. They were down here at the end of 2022. Now they're significantly higher. They've had a significant move above the 50-day moving average, and I believe they're very close, probably within 3 to 4 weeks from a golden cross. So then you start asking yourself, well, what are the catalysts? The first catalyst is that in addition to making them a tax loss selling pick, I also talked about them as being a deep value play. And the reason I think that they're a deep value play is that they already have a resource on their Tonopah project. It's a very substantial resource of silver and very high grade. It's similar to the maiden resource that Silvercrest put out. And one thing is different, it's a higher grade than the maiden resource that Silvercrest put out. Since then, Silvercrest has become a mine that they're mining silver at about $6.88 an ounce, and they're producing silver at 700 grams per ton. That's a cash-making machine of a mine, and I think that Tonopah is heading in that same direction. They've done drilling that they have a bunch of pending assay results coming out from, I think at any time now, and they've significantly expanded the footprint of the resource to almost double, and they are also making plans to start targeting the high-grade portions of the strike of the resource, these epithermal veins that are in the resource. And so as they do that, they can increase the ounces of silver quite dramatically, and they can increase what is already a very high grade, average grade of the resource. I'm very glad that this company decided to be a sponsor of my shows, because I think that they're going to have exceptional results throughout 2023. Why I invited them for an interview and then as a sponsor of my shows was at another project they have called Silver Cloud. They had released bonanza grades of silver and gold, and in a epithermal vein that's associated, I believe, possibly with their Northwest Canyon. So I think that this has tremendous potential. When you find, it's not an accident when you find the boiling zone of an epithermal vein, and sometimes those aren't easy to find, but when you do find them, they tend to be big, high grade, low cost, money-making machines. And so I think that Blackrock has the 1-2 punch of Tonopah, growing resource of high-grade silver, and the Silver Cloud project. And again, I think this is a deep value play. I think they've got plenty of catalysts that will drive this 50-day moving average through the 200-day moving average for a golden cross that will be an excellent performer in 2023. Okay, so another recent addition to my sponsorship program is Dynasty Gold. And why I invited them to be a sponsor is because I'm very impressed with the orogenic gold high grade that they're hitting close to surface. As I mentioned earlier when talking about Amex, I talked about how these orogenic gold systems such as Fosterville or Red Lake in Ontario are structurally controlled, and that you're looking for the jewelry box. And in the case of the Swan Zone in Fosterville, they had to go down several hundred meters to hit that jewelry box. Dynasty Gold has already hit the jewelry box very close to surface. This caused their stock price to go up quite dramatically. And often when stocks go up quite dramatically, they have a significant sell-off because you've got investors that have made 3-4 times their investment, and they start to take some money off the table. That's not a bad thing for them to do. It shows that they're disciplined in their trading, but I think they're leaving a lot on the table because this is the very early days of an orogenic gold system that has hit their jewelry box very close to surface. The bonus to that is that to keep following that jewelry box, you don't need to drill super deep holes. And the second thing that the market is not recognizing is the continuity of that jewelry box. They drilled 3 holes, one to the south like this at about 100 and I think it was 70 meters. They hit the jewelry box that had like 246 grams of gold in it. Right beside that, to the west, higher up, they hit bonanza grade. And then to the east, lower, they hit bonanza grade. So already what is the dots are pointing towards is that they have one of these exciting orogenic gold systems that you've already hit the jewelry box, and those jewelry boxes can go very, very deep. So they're a brand new sponsor of my website. I'm very excited to have them on as a sponsor because I think that they are at a seminal moment for the exploration of a orogenic gold system, and finding a jewelry box that close to surface is tremendously exciting. And if you look at the distribution of the gold in their drill holes, that high grade is starting to point towards a trend that they can keep on following. Again, I'm very excited about what Dynasty Gold has found. I'm a big fan of orogenic gold systems because they can be cash machines when you find a jewelry box. I think that they've already found a jewelry box with those bonanza grades of gold in them, and they've already tagged into a trend that looks quite exciting as well on the distribution of that gold. So, in here, you've got a company that's only got a valuation of $10 million Canadian. That is insanely undervalued. And as they keep moving forward, I think that this is going to be a hell of a performer for the shareholders. Alrighty, so the next company I want to talk about is Paycore. This is another sponsor of my shows, and they've only been trading since April. But they're right beside I-80 Gold, which I just talked about earlier in the report, and I talked about the spectacular CRD that they're finding to the south of the Archimedes pit. Well, you go a couple thousand meters further south, and you run into the CRD that Paycore has found. And if you look at the dynamics of that, let's first start with the structural corridor. It goes right through I-80's ground and through Paycore's ground. So you've got the right structural story. Then the second thing you need in a CRD system is the right rocks for those metals bearing fluids to then have the gold disperse into deposits. And they've got the right kind of rock. It's the same rock package that starts at the I-80 Gold's Archimedes pit and continues right through Paycore's ground. So it's no wonder that they've found an important CRD with the same characteristics of what I-80 Gold has found. High grades of related to a CRD of silver, lead, and zinc, and then an overprint of high-grade gold. So what's likely happened here is that the fluids that carried these up at different times have followed the same structural corridor or crack in the earth that is the path of least resistance for those fluids to then make their way up into these CRD deposits. So then the important thing to look at is, and I think that people aren't really understanding how important the CRDs that both I-80 Gold and Paycore are finding is that if you look at the metal value in the rock, it's off the charts. You're looking at $1,000 to over $5,000 of metals per ton in the rock that both I-80 Gold have drilled into and also Paycore. And so Paycore had their own excellent news in November that made them blast off, which was these high-grade CRDs. And they've got an excellent project, and it's no wonder that the 50-day moving average is on such a bullish trajectory. And I think that that's going to continue, and the catalysts from that are more assay results and more drilling into the known CRD that they have and expanding on that, which I think they will do. But it's already an important discovery in the Eureka mining camp that I'm very excited about. Okay, so not a sponsor, but a pick of mine is Firefox. Firefox was a pick that I interviewed their management, their chairman back here somewhere, and then I made them a pick in my tax loss selling, and they participated very nicely by having a significant breakout in early 2023. They're now trading well above the 50-day moving average and also above the 200-day moving average. Just in the last couple of days, they put out really nice drill results from another orogenic gold story that is hitting excellent stuff right at surface. In fact, what I'm going to work on, I'm not going to go into a great deal of details about the results other than to say really impressed with the thickness and the grades. And what I am working on is getting their chairman back on the show so we can interview and we can talk about these results so that I can get a deeper dive into those results so we can give more clarity to those that are following Firefox. But I'm very comfortable to say that this company has something special in Finland. They're getting great stuff with their Truth machine. It's in an area where there's been a lot of success, and it's in the right kind of rocks, these old rocks for orogenic gold systems. They also have an excellent structural story that is starting to play out. And again, most importantly, they've got the mineralization with high grades in it that makes this whole story very exciting and makes for a very undervalued company. So stay tuned for the interview that I'm going to do with Firefox, hopefully in the not too distant future. I'm going to stay on this orogenic gold system storyline because I follow another orogenic gold system in Galantis Gold. Galantis is in Ireland. They are exploring an orogenic gold system. They have already found high-grade gold in many places on their Kearney and their Joshua veins. And there's other veins in close proximity to the Kearney and the Joshua. And what's also important is these are tightly packed. And as you go to the immediate south of those tightly packed veins, you've got this big structure. Again, these are these are really important in orogenic gold systems because they are the conduit. They're the crack in the earth that creates a path of least resistance for these high-grade gold-bearing fluids to make their way to surface. All of their drilling so far has been confined to the first 200 meters, but in the first 200 meters, they're already hitting jewelry box kind of grades. Additionally important that nobody, I think, is paying attention to is that they're also seeing dilation zones, a pattern of dilation zones in the Kearney and Joshua vein. Why those are so important is they're also additional. So you've got the main crack and then the rocks open up, and this allows the gold-bearing fluids to pool up. But also important is the predictability. This network of dilation zones can lead them deeper and deeper. And that's where the real story is for me when it comes to Galantis, is that they are on the top of an orogenic gold system. They're already getting very high grade, and they're hitting it on multiple places. That is all leading them deeper. And as they go deeper, I think you'll see those veins all come together. And I think that the key source of where all those high-grade fluids is coming from is related to that big fault that goes right through their property. That big crack, I think, is where the gold made its way up and then has spread out. As you get deeper, I think they'll come together and they'll be related to that fault, that crack in the earth that is immediately to the south of the cluster of veins that they found. So Galantis Gold has an excellent orogenic gold system, and I think they're very undervalued, and they'll be very busy on the news front. And I'm looking forward to my next interview with Mario Stefano to talk about the next results that they have. Golden Lake Exploration is also in that camp near, it goes I-80 gold, high-grade CRD with an overprint of high-grade to bonanza grades of gold. Then to their immediate south, you've got Paycore, who's found the same thing, high-grade CRD with an overprint of high-grade gold. Then you follow that path, and right beside Paycore is Golden Lake. And Golden Lake has found, guess what? High-grade CRD with an overprint of high-grade gold. So, and then today they put out news that they did a bunch of sampling in the past that never got assayed, that they've recently come out with those. And they are going to be doing some geophysics. Sorry, somebody just sent me a news release that I can't have a chance to read off the wire or off the email. But sorry, getting back to Golden Lake. So they plan on doing geophysics that will help them to vector in deeper below the high-grade CRD with the high-grade overprint that they've already found in close proximity to the surface. And importantly, they noted that if you look at the CRDs that both I-80 Gold and Paycore have found, they're significantly deeper than what the CRD that Golden Lake has found. I think this is an exciting emerging discovery that nobody's given them much potential, but I have had them on as a sponsor since back here. I also threw my hat in the ring to be an advisor to the company, which they graciously accepted. And I joined to help out with digital marketing, some strategic planning and corporate development kind of stuff. But the excitement that I have for what they've already found, and they have such a minuscule valuation for, is in one of the most exciting exploration camps inside of Nevada, where they're finding CRDs with high-grade gold overprint that gives them rock values of the metals in them that is some of the highest grade anywhere in the planet, looking for any kind of metal. So it's no wonder that I think that they've been following a similar path to i-80 Gold and Paycore, significantly break out above their 50-day moving average, trading well above their 200-day moving average, and within a day or two, or at most a week, of a golden cross. I think they've got great things that are going to happen for Golden Lake in 2023. Okay, so the next company is not a sponsor, we have tentatively planned an interview for tomorrow with management, including their geologist. And what I want to get them on about is they had some results here that surprisingly the market acted very negatively towards. I thought these results were very good, especially when you consider sort of what they've already found and where that's leading them. They kind of have a stacked sheets of excellent grades of gold. And these are all trending towards a important structural corridor. They're in the corridor, and as you follow them down the mountain, you're getting some of them cross-cutting, and that's a very exciting thing because, again, in order to get gold mineralization close to surface, it starts deeper where you've got the heat, to the heat engine and the power to make its way up the cracks in the earth and then disperse as it gets at surface. And I think that that's exactly what's happening here, and it's an exciting combination. I'm really looking forward to that interview tomorrow because I think Goliath is sitting on a multi-million ounce gold mine of the future. When you get an opportunity to be able to buy that at, let me see here, right around the 50-day or 52-week lows, that's a tremendous opportunity, and that's why I invited them on. Yes, it has gone through a death cross here, but I think that could change direction very soon. Again, I think they're very undervalued. They're not a sponsor, but they are a pick. And I'm glad to be able to have an interview with them tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. All right. 9 Mile Metals. I keep banging the table on 9 Mile because I think 9 Mile is on to the best base metal story in exploration that I can find. And I look around for these things all the time because I was in the business in the 1990s when Diamond Fields Resources had their spectacular discovery in Newfoundland of a VMS, and it ultimately got them bought out for $4 billion, and multiple investors made multiples of their money on that company. So I'm always looking around for good VMS stories. The trouble is they're not that easy to find. But in the case of 9 Mile Metals, I think that they're in the early days of making a tremendously important discovery of a series of massive sulfide occurrences. They've started out with 2. The announcement of their lens that they found right at surface happened right around here, and that had them see a very substantial I'm going to go back here a little bit because I want to show you why I followed golden crosses so closely. last December, they went through a golden cross. And as you can see here, the 200-day moving average trended upwards, and the 50-day moving average stayed well above the 200-day moving average throughout 2022. That's a sort of the model of what I look for. And I think that what they've found in 2022 is going to keep that trend and probably amplify that trend quite significantly. And why I say that is at their 9 Mile Brook lens, they found an extremely high-grade lens with up to 10% copper. The lens is over 10 meters thick. It comes right to surface where it daylights. And when you're at the top of a VMS system and you're already getting a thick lens with extreme high grade, it is a tremendous indicator of what the source of that, which is coming from much deeper, has, which points towards a big ore body, a big deposit with high grade, with very high grade metals in it. And why I can confidently say that is, first of all, these are volcanogenic massive sulfides, so they're volcanoes. Volcanoes are what bring the massive sulfides to the surface, and they come from much deeper. The fact that they already have a thick lens at surface with high grade, it points towards a very exciting source or feeder to what brought that to surface. They are drilling for that feeder source right now. That's very exciting. Additionally, 20 kilometers from the lens, they found another occurrence of massive sulfides. And at the top of that massive sulfide occurrence, you're finding high grades as well. So that's another one that they have to find the source of. But then stepping back and putting it into the context of where they are, they're in the Bathurst mining camp. The Bathurst mining camp is one of the most important VMS mining camps in the world, in your top 3. So they're definitely in elephant country, and in elephant country, they're making new discoveries of massive sulfides in an area where there's been massive mines all around them within a 15-mile radius. And they're chock-a-block full of geophysical anomalies, which suggests that they're in a cluster of VMS discoveries, which is what these things come in. These volcanogenic massive sulfide deposits generally come in clusters. I think they've got a cluster, maybe in more than one part of the claim, their group of claims. So those are the reasons why they are my number one pick when it comes to explorers of massive sulfide VMS deposits. And I think they've got a tremendous future that has the potential for them to see a valuation, several multiples of their current valuation, considering where they are in elephant country, what they've already found. To have a sub $20 million valuation is a tremendous opportunity for investors. That's why I bang the table hard on them. I'm super happy that they're sponsored my shows, because I get to be in early and keep interviewing them when they put out news releases and follow the evolution of what I think is going to be a massive winner. And that's what I look for to have sponsors. Okay, so now I'm going to move over to a royalty company. One of the best performing royalty companies in the mining business in the 1990s, which was a very difficult time for the gold sector in a lot of cases for most of the 1990s. The best performing gold stock was a royalty company called Franco-Nevada. And Franco-Nevada is kind of the model of what all royalty companies aspire to. Why I like Origin Royalties so much is they've recently gone through the transition from having a group of projects that they have royalties on with the potential to become mines, to one of them is now a mine, and it is a excellent cash generating machine for them because they have a 2% royalty on the Ermitaño mine in Sonora, Mexico, right beside, and it is the best performing mine that First Majestic owns. It's a low-cost producer with very high grades, which means high margins and means a lot of nice checks of cash to the royalty company Origin that owns a 2% royalty on it. But also an exciting asset that they have is the Silicon project in Nevada that Anglo is drilling with 9 or 10 rigs as we speak. They've already put out a maiden resource of 3.4 million ounces of gold in an oxide deposit. That, you know, that Nevada has been pretty picked over for oxide deposits that are right at surface over the last 40 or 50 years. So to find a new one that it looks like it's very big is a tremendous opportunity for Anglo, in that it's already big, it's oxide, and it's getting bigger, and Origin Royalties owns a 1% royalty on that. They also have a pipeline of other very high quality projects that they have royalties on. And as a royalty company, they're always looking to generate new royalties. Now, a lot of these small royalty companies talk about organically growing their royalty portfolio. Very few of them have done what Origin Royalties has done, which is to venture or bring in as a partner or option the project out to a company like First Majestic. First Majestic made an important discovery and has turned that into a mine. That they all aspire to that. Very few of them are able to do that. And Origin Royalties has proven that they can do that. They're now a cash flowing royalty company with their first royalty, and I think they've got more royalties in their future. And not too long ago, I did an interview with Paddy Nicol from Origin Royalties, and I've known Paddy Nicol since before he got into running a royalty company, and we used to work for, our mentor was his uncle, Bob Darney, who's no longer with us, sadly, was a very talented geologist, so talented that he could sink into our thick skulls, and Paddy and mine, a lot of really important information about geology. He was a wonderful mentor. And Paddy is, extending that legacy as I try to as well. And I think he's got a very good royalty company that's at a important juncture for a royalty company, in that they're moving from a company with potential royalties into cash flow royalties from the Ermitaño mine. Alrighty. So I'm winding things down here, folks. Bear with me. I've got 2 more companies to talk about. Sokoman, SIC is their stock symbol, is a sponsor of my website. And they're at a seminal moment, an important juncture for the development or exploration of a orogenic gold system. Back here, they announced a spectacular hole, which was the deepest hole that they ever had, the thickest intersection of high grade in an orogenic gold system. And it's about 350 meters and deep. And it's the deepest part of their eastern zone. And after they announced this and the stock broke out quite dramatically, they spent a couple months here doing geophysical or additional work to then get drilling again on this bonanza grade jewelry box hit of what I think is a Swanstone lookalike at their Moosehead project. And why I say that is a Swan Zone lookalike is Swan Zone can be noted not just for its high grade, but in the structural complexity. In that case, the structures are very important because that's what the metals bearing fluids use as a path of least resistance to then make deposits. And I think they've got a Swan Zone, the top of a Swan Zone lookalike that they need to drill deeper and to keep following that. So what they did is they sent a camera down the drill hole, and then their structural geologists can watch what the rocks are looking like as they go to the bottom of the hole. And the structural model that he came up with is that they had their eastern zone going like this, and then they have another zone coming up from another direction. And where they hit that bonanza jewelry box is right near the contact of those two zones. And what I'm drawing for you here is what the Swan Zone looks like. So then they drilled another hole into that, and they hit that jewelry box again. And now they're about to start drilling again to tag that jewelry box again. And the assay results for that second hole into the jewelry box are pending. But as you can see here, they are a couple days away from a golden cross. And they've got pending results from the second hole into the jewelry box, and another hole going down to test that jewelry box. And I think that they've definitely got the catalysts for a golden cross that takes the stock much higher. So stay tuned for them. As they're a sponsor of my website, I'm able to get them on the show quite regularly when they have important news out. And I'm looking forward to our next opportunity. All right. So now I want to talk about Silvercrest. For investors that want access to a new mining company that in early November, they put their Las Chispas mine into full commercial production. So they're only a few months into full commercial production, but already it's spitting out some excellent statistics. They're mining silver at about $6.88 an ounce, and they're producing silver at about 700 grams per ton. So that makes for a very high margin mine, and tremendous opportunity for investors. The reason that they are not, how do I say it, properly priced, if you will, is because the number crunchers that run big institutions too often, they need to see a quarter or two of the numbers from a new mine to get really excited and start taking big positions. But I think that they're already showing what they need to show, that nimble investors can get in there ahead of the institutions and see excellent performance when the bigger institutions that want access to silver and gold miners get excited and want to and see a couple quarters of production and get very excited. But nonetheless, as you can see here, the 50-day moving average is on a very bullish trajectory. Just recently, it went through a golden cross. It's today trading above its 50-day moving average and its 200-day moving average. And what I expect to see happen here, based on the low costs, high grades, and high margins from their mine in Sonora, Mexico, Las Chispas, is that they see a year where they go through a golden cross here, that the 200-day moving average starts getting much more bullish, and that the 50-day moving average throughout 2023 stays well above the 200-day moving average, and that they outperform their peers because of the low cost and high high margins, high grade and high margins, and also get wind in their sails because of what's happening with the price of gold and silver. So I'm a big fan of Silvercrest, and that's not the only reason I'm a big fan of Silvercrest. My company, Advanced Lithium, where I'm the CEO and I'm also a large shareholder, has a 55 square kilometer property right beside Las Chispas of Silvercrest. It has the same structural corridor that goes through the Silvercrest project. The structural corridor goes right through to Advanced Lithium's project, and it also has the same rock packages. And Silvercrest mine is a epithermal vein mine. So far on Serape project owned by Advanced Lithium is that it is also has two big underexplored epithermal veins on it. Another thing that I would point out is that epithermal veins are often found in clusters. And where you find one or two, you can find many, many more. Some of those make their way all the way to surface, but they might only have come outcrop for little portions. And some of those are completely blind. They don't come to surface. An example of that is if you go to the Mag Silver's Juanicipio mine outside of Fresnillo, that's two epithermal veins that didn't come to surface, and yet they found what are now is a mine. It's a very low-cost mine with very high grades and high margins, and that's the potential of what you can find in epithermal vein systems. The big land package that Advanced Lithium owns right beside Silvercrest has been very underexplored for looking for a cluster. Secondly, looking for the boiling zones inside of the epithermal vein. And I'm going to bring up something here. Let me find it for you. I'm going to bring up First Majestic. And before I bring up First Majestic, I want to talk about Origin Royalties, because Origin Royalties is the one that owns a 1.5% royalty on our project, Serape. Oh, here it is. Okay. So this is sort of the evolution of the Ermitaño mine. It's from a corporate presentation of Origin Royalties. Again, Origin owns 2% of this. And as you can see here, they started out over here, and they had an outcrop. It was fairly low grade, and then they drilled down 150 meters. They hit the boiling zone of an epithermal vein system, and the rest is history. But there's a couple other important things that I want to point out. If you would have drilled here or here or here or here or here or here or here, you would have missed that epithermal vein, the boiling zone of that epithermal vein, and you would have missed the mine. So now let's look at how this has evolved. And you go to First Majestic, and you look at, now here's how it's evolved. As you can notice, as they go towards the east, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But again, I would point out that if you drilled over here, many spots along that epithermal vein, you would have missed the boiling zone of that epithermal vein. And that's why, you know, exploring properly and aggressively along a big epithermal vein is so important, because you've got this zonation of grade, and how it reacts at depth can be very important in its discovery. You got one little outcrop, and they drill underneath it, and they hit hit the home run that the rest is history. Now it's a high grade, low cost, money making machine of a mine. I saw something else there that I can bring up here. Here's a map of our the project that we got from Origin, which has a 1.5% royalty on us. And they staked this project because they thought it was a lookalike to the Ermitaño. So on our project, you've got a long vein. It's over 5 kilometers long, which is significantly longer than the Ermitaño vein. It has been only sparsely drilled. Nobody has found the boiling zone of that system, and we mean to do that. And we're going to be doing some drilling to do that. A second vein is over 2 kilometers long, and that's the Chiltepin vein. And again, it's only, I think it's only seen 2 drill holes, and they haven't found the boiling zone of that system. But the evidence that there is a boiling zone that is the extensive surface sampling and outcropping of the vein over here, and widespread gold and silver mineralization. That first map showed you the geochem of the gold. There's the silver, and there's the antimony. So you've got all of these things pointing that you're at the top of an epithermal vein system that is still above all the work to date, is still above the boiling zone of the Serape vein and the Chiltepin vein. And this is also wide open for the discovery of more veins, a cluster of epithermal veins. It's a 55 square kilometer property, so there's lots of room to fit a cluster of epithermal veins. And the reason I say that is look at the city of Fresnillo. They've been mining in Fresnillo, Mexico since the 1500s. From a cluster of epithermal veins that are about 1.5 kilometer, 1,500 meters by about 1,000 meters, and contained in there is over 20 epithermal veins. As I said, these things are found in clusters. The second important thing is you got to look for the blind veins. And the most important thing is you've got to be based on the zonation of the grade that I showed you in the Ermitaño mine. You got to thoroughly explore these things for the boiling zone. And I don't believe that the boiling zone of the Serape project or the Chiltepin project have been found yet. All righty, so that's my stories. I'm going to wrap things up now. I'm going to stop share and wrap things up. So I see some great trends developing for the price of gold, silver, and other metals. It's going to make 2023 what I think is the start of a multi-year bull market for metals. Like we saw in 2000, I think 2022 is like 2000. 2001 was the start. 2023 is the start. After the start, you went into an over 10-year bull market that made investors just insane amounts of money when they were good at picking stocks. And, you know, I'm not one to blow my own horn very often, but sometimes I have to make a point. A lot of my peers in this market over the last 6 months have been pulling in their horns and afraid to do a lot of commentary. I've been doing the opposite. They also tend to be shotgun hunters, and most of what they shoot performs very poorly. And that's why they're all lamenting the difficult market and pulling in their horns and not wanting to say much because they're scared. On the other hand, I try to shoot with a rifle, and I have exhibited my ability to be a good hunter with the rifle that you can easily go and do your homework on and see that I've done that by going to my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, or going to my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. I don't curate any of my reports. I don't highlight only the good ones and hide the bad ones. I put everything out there so that you can go and see my track record. And so I know what I'm doing because I had great mentors in geology, geochemistry, and geophysics. I'm a passionate treasure hunter, and I love doing interviews with management. I'm very fortunate that I think I do a good job of that by asking the right questions on a timely fashion when these companies put news out. And that's why I have a good roster of sponsors. And that roster of sponsors has a very high batting average for outperforming its peers. And then I've also got other picks that I've made that follow the same pattern as my sponsors. And so there you go, folks. There's what I see happening. There's a shopping list for you. As always, my shows are for information purposes only and research. It's important for you to do your homework, speak with your financial advisors. And I always close my show by emphasizing how important it is for you to do your homework. I provide an avenue to start that homework in my interviews and in my sector reports that you can find on my YouTube channel and on my Substack. And then go to their websites, do your own homework, understand the companies you're investing in, look at their news releases, look at their corporate presentations, understand the reason you want to understand your investments and what you're investing in is because then you'll make logical investment decisions. What I find too often in this business is that the investors out there that are investing in fairly illiquid stocks tend to follow what the day-to-day activity in the stock prices are doing, and they don't really do their homework. And even analysts commentators in this business fall into that same category. And that's why they make emotional picks. That's why they get whipsawed a lot, buying on the highs and selling on the lows. But the most successful investors in this sector have always been those that do their homework. They make logical investment decisions. They have reasonable timelines for success. And that's a recipe for success in this business. And that's why I always bang the drum on investors doing their homework and why I provide so much content for you to do your homework. On that note, have a great day and we'll talk to you soon.